Thanks for clicking play on the latest edition of Iowa Revolution. My name is Spencer. He, of course, is Dr. Bob, and we've got a special guest this week, Todd Dorman, columnist with the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Todd, thanks for joining the show.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So, Todd, we do actually have a little bit of a connection. You grew up in Belmont, Iowa, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where both of my parents graduated from school. So they're also Belmont Broncos.
Yeah, there were. I don't know if I knew them, but I know there were Dirks in
And the funny thing
Belmont.
is, we're not even related to those Dirks. We're
Oh,
related to the
okay,
Rock
really?
Rapids Dirks. There's also a bunch
Oh,
of Dirkses in the like Anamosa, Monticello area, and we lived in Wyoming, Iowa for a little while. So we have the same thing. Oh, do you know this guy? You're related to this person? No, unfortunately not. But Todd, again, thanks for coming on the show. You also do your own podcast as well through the Cedar Rapids Gazette, correct?
yeah, we do uh, on Iowa politics, which is four hardworking reporters and me, basically. So
Well, hopefully you fit in really well with us, and I'm sure you will here, Todd. We'll get right to it. This is Iowa Coast to Coast from KCRG. The president of the Iowa Farmers Union said proposed changes to the National Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will hurt Iowa farmers. The cuts total around $230 billion as part of President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Aaron Lehman said farmers are an integral part of SNAP because they're growing the food on the program the people are buying. Lehman said right now farmers are experiencing low commodity prices in a very concentrated atmosphere. That means they only have a few markets to sell into. Lehman said between trade and tariffs and cuts to other programs, many farmers are worried about what's to come. He added the SNAP program creates a trickle-down effect in communities, helping not only farmers, but also those who rely on the assistance and even the grocery stores that participate. I'm quoting Lehman here, "We need a strong nutrition program to help build our local economies and our farmers. You want to have a good partner, a good public partner, whether it's working on conservation programs or nutrition programs or fresh food programs. Farmers need a good, reliable public partner, and that just hasn't been the case," end quote. Todd, obviously, we're a huge agricultural state, and this affects not only the consumers that we're depending on those SNAP bucks, but of course also our grocery stores and our farmers.
yeah, well, that's why the SNAP program is in the Farm Bill because they're pretty well linked. Um, one thing that surprised me, the governor is usually pretty supportive of the corn growers, and but banning soda is that's mostly corn syrup. But I
Right.
think we produce a lot of that, or at least a lot of corn for corn syrup. So, I mean, that's just one way it will have an effect. I mean, it would be one thing if uh, you know I just don't understand why SNAP is such a difficult concept for some politicians to just kind of get their head around. I mean, people who work, full time don't have enough money to get the groceries they need for their family, so they sign up for SNAP. They're not working, they're not laying in the hammock as as the governor might put it. I mean, it's food, and you got to live to have food. I mean, you can't live without food. So it's why they would cut this program when it benefits, small and large businesses, when it helps people get, the food they need and stay in the workplace and stay perhaps, getting their degree, all these things that you're doing to try to economically better yourself. Well, it's going to be tougher to do that if you don't have food to put on the table.
Well, and it's one of the programs, there's very little fraud in SNAP. Uh, it's interesting the debate over drinking soda pop. And that's sort of a moralistic thing, sort of relates to that the state knows better than Governor Reynolds knows better what should be on our plates um, than the parents do. And I don't know, it's a very interesting kind of a situation when you can have companies like Walmart pay their employees not enough so that they're working full time, that they're eligible for SNAP benefits. As long as we subsidize different companies like Walmart, it's without making them, pay adequate wages is just, pretty strange to me.
Well, and
You brought up a
go
good
ahead.
point, just piggybacking off of that, just the fact that most of these people are working, even people on Medicaid. And a lot of the time, if they aren't working, it's because they're disabled, or maybe they have three kids under the age of six and they want to stay home with their children, or they're taking care of elderly parents. So a lot of these instances where, oh, they're just sitting at home doing nothing is not even true. It's just a lie to try to cut these funds.
Well, and we've had this kind of transformation of these issues since, probably Ronald Reagan talked about the welfare queens and all of that. I mean, it used to be that we knew people were just down on their luck. They lost their jobs, they got laid off, they needed help. But now we've gotten to this point where at least one of the major parties, the Republicans, have decided that you're poor because you make bad choices. And so, and every choice you make is bad, including what you buy with your SNAP dollars. So we have to come in and make sure that you do the right thing because you're not capable of it on your own. So that's, we don't raise the minimum wage because of that. Republicans say, well, these are bad choices that these people made, and will hurt business if we make the wage higher. So, and that's a big shift. I mean, we used to raise the minimum wage, every few years in Iowa. I mean, at least once a decade, and now it's been almost 20 years. So there just seems to be this, like I say, this idea that we have to tell these folks what to do because they're not capable of making their own decisions and buying the right food.
Well, bottom line, capitalism is broken. It's been totally captured by big business. Uh, they've, the only, if you think about it, at the core of capitalism is profit, and there's no other obligation other than the CEOs of these big companies, other than to just make profits. If they don't make enough profits, they're fired. And so everything is about profit. And to sort of mitigate and create a level playing field that would also help the consumer and help the general population, we have government rules and regulations. And so the Republicans have broken government. By the Republicans breaking government, they've also broken capitalism. And it can't be successful anymore as long as it's in the hands of the billionaires creating the laws, the markets, everything about it. I guess I'd never thought about it before that way, but really, I mean, capitalism has its problems to begin with, but by taking away sort of the referee, which would be government, that the ultimate capitalists, the billionaire Republicans, have broken capitalism. Maybe that was their goal too, or at least the old free market kind of type.
Let's go from one paternalistic decision to the next. This is from Iowa Public Radio. Planned Parenthood North Central States announced it plans to close 4 clinics in Iowa amid financial challenges. The organization said it will close its clinics in Ames, Cedar Rapids, Sioux City, and Urbandale, in addition to 4 of its clinics in Minnesota in the coming year. It will also lay off 66 staff members and offer 37 others reassignments. Planned Parenthood said in a press release that the decision to restructure and close the clinics, quote, comes as patient needs and preferences have changed, the broken aspects of our healthcare system have intensified, the organization's Minnesota Title X funds have been frozen, and the U.S. House voted to advance a reconciliation package that defunds Planned Parenthood. Continuing quoting here, we have been fighting to hold together an unsustainable infrastructure as the landscape shifts around us and an onslaught of attacks continues. Ruth Richardson, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood North Central State, said in a statement, quote, we know that many of our patients would have nowhere to turn to if every Planned Parenthood health center were to disappear from their state. Heart-wrenching and hard decisions today will ensure Planned Parenthood is here for years to come. And currently, Planned Parenthood just has 2 locations that are currently in operation in the state of Iowa after these 4 close down.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Todd.
Oh, it's unfortunate because, beyond providing abortion, which is a very important service, they did lots of other things, some breast cancer screening, made contraceptives available for cheaper prices. If you and they were, they were medically licensed. They had, doctors and nurses that did examinations and things there. So you lose all of that over the abortion issue. And in Iowa, we've replaced that with I think the governor asked for another $1 million for the Moms Iowa program, which is what is it, the maternal options. What was it? I forget anyway. But it's the program where they basically give state money to a bunch of, religious affiliated anti-abortion
Or a
organizations.
place like Birthright or something like that, where
Right,
they
right.
encourage you to, if you come in for your, routine checks, they're still gonna, say, hey, you better keep this and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And some of them do offer some checks. There's maybe an ultrasound here or there, but they're not medically licensed. They don't, they're not there to produce. I mean, they're not there to check and make sure you're okay. They basically exist to convince you not to get an abortion. And some of them are a lot more aggressive than others in doing that. I mean, we've had readers who wrote to us about stories where they were really severely pressured and they were told that they'd tell the people at their church or tell other people if they got an abortion. So it's pretty heavy-handed. And Texas has a similar program. They started out spending very little on it. Now I think it's up to like $10 million or something. So this program is going to grow also, and basically it's just a donation to these organizations. But it doesn't replace Planned Parenthood. It doesn't replace real medical care. It's uh it's not a good trade-off at all.
Well, and nationally, I think I read the other day that 1 in 3 women have gone to a Planned Parenthood facility. A lot of people do it, and you know, this could be a moment when Spencer and Bob and now Todd Google shit, but it's like I believe that abortions are up in areas where there aren't Planned Parenthood facilities. So, but we'd have to Google that. But it doesn't have the consequences uh, that Republicans act like they want it to have. I think the ultimate goal is, if you think about what's happening, what's trending in the Republican Party, they just want more women, white American women pregnant.
So this is what AI overview from Google says. So take this with a grain of salt. But in states without abortion bans, the national abortion rate in 2024 was 15.4 abortions per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. It's a slight decrease from the 2023 rate in 15.5. In states with bans, abortions are near zero, is what it says. So Google is absolutely freaking worthless nowadays.
Well, I think what has gone up is you've seen uh, you know, bad maternal health outcomes. You've had all sorts of things that, you know, are happening to women while they're pregnant that if they, decided not to carry the baby to term, these things wouldn't have happened. And I mean, really, pregnancy is kind of it is the most serious medical condition most women ever have. There are all sorts of, things that you can get, uh, uh, infections and high blood pressure and things like that during a pregnancy. So yeah, and places like Planned Parenthood help with some of that. But they're just a scapegoat. I mean, it's fun to, they blame abortion on Planned Parenthood. It's easy. That's what that's what they do, is they find uh, somebody to attack and then, force them out of the debate. So it's unfortunate. I mean, we're just going to have more mothers with pregnancy complications where doctors aren't sure what to do. Do you take action to terminate the pregnancy, or do you worry about your medical license? I mean, it's in other states where this has been on the books for a while. Where abortion bans have been on the books for a while. You've seen a lot of really heart wrenching stories about people who got or either died or were near death by the time they finally got someone to give them care.
Yeah, there have been
Well, and
literal horror stories of women that have passed away. Maternal death rates have certainly risen in states like Texas, as you mentioned. So yeah, these women are left on their own. They have no place to go.
well, and another thing to think about is for young women who are sexually active and want to get birth control, they might not want to go to their local clinic. They might not want their parents to know. They would be condemned. They're afraid they'd go to the regular doctor. The parents would be told. And they have one option, and that's Planned Parenthood, where they know that they will be anonymous. And so I guess that's one of the things that the Republicans want is for those young women not to get birth control so that they will get pregnant and then have to bring the baby to term so there'll be more workers in the economy.
Yeah, and we'll put them to work as soon as we possibly can, as we've seen in the past couple of legislative sessions. They want to get rid of basically all the child labor laws that have been in effect over the past 100 years. Let's get into some politics here in the state. This is from Taylor Cohn in Bleeding Heartland. State Auditor Rob Sand, the top elected Democrat in Iowa, announced his run for governor on May 12th. With Governor Kim Reynolds not seeking re-election, some see Sand's candidacy as a chance to win the office away from the GOP. I'm among those who would like to see that happen. Unfortunately, Rob Sand is not offering a real alternative to the party in power. Sand's favorite message is that he isn't, quote, partisan, which means that despite his Democratic affiliation, he is courting conservative votes. This is evident in his media appearances and campaign materials so far. In his campaign launch video, he doesn't mention public education, abortion, trans rights, environmental protections, book banning, or other topics that have been important to the Democratic base over the course of Reynolds' last term. Meanwhile, at least one Iowa media outlet on the left, the podcast Rock Hard Caucus, has reported that Sand has not responded to their agreement to an interview, even though the initial request was from Sand's PR representative themselves. As comfortable as Sand is reaching across the aisle, he seems unwilling to face tough questions from, supposedly, his own side. And there are tough questions that must be asked if Sand intends to be governor. For example, the largest portion of his funding comes from Nixon Lauritsen, his father-in-law, one of the wealthiest men in Iowa. What does it say about Rob Sand's overtures toward the right side of the political spectrum that aside from Sand, Lauritsen donates generously to Republican candidates, including Reynolds and U.S. Representative Randy Feenstra, who has announced his own gubernatorial run. So certainly, I know we're all Democrats here. I think we would all root on Rob Sand if he were the nominee. But these are pertinent questions, I think. Are you a Democrat is certainly a good question.
Well, there was a whole school of thought that came to be after the election last year that maybe, uh, Democrats talk too much about social issues. They shouldn't have defended trans people, and abortion didn't turn out to make the impact that it was supposed to. And so now we want to talk about sort of the kitchen table issues, I guess, for lack of a better term. I've always thought that was kind of strange. We do a lot of our financial planning on the couch. So
Same.
kitchen table doesn't
Right.
usually get much action. But yeah, so that idea is out there, and it has been. Iowa Democrats have been doing this for a while. Tom Vilsack did it. I mean, every gubernatorial candidate since then has tried to basically say, I'm the governor of the whole state. I'm not partisan. I want to work with the other side. That's much tougher to pull off now because a lot of Democrats aren't really interested in working with the other side when it's doing some pretty remarkably reckless things. But yeah, and as far as the Lauritsen money, I guess the bright side of that is he took a major Republican donor out of the game.
Right.
I guess maybe that's it. I think it would be worse if his family gave him no money. That would be even tougher.
Right.
But
That would be tougher to explain away.
You're right. I think he's going to have a credible opponent from the left. I'm not sure who that's going to be, but somebody's going to run because of what you're suggesting, that he's not hammering the core Democratic issues the way he should be.
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to lead up with you, Dr. Bob, is first of all, if you have any names that would be interesting for you personally that would run against Rob Sand. And do you think that that's going to be something that happens, that he does get a challenge from the left? I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already.
Well, I think there's some people thinking about it. There's a couple of people that I'm thinking about or that have talked with me about it a little bit that I think would be very interesting candidates. You know, and I understand that there's sort of, people have been running, not that centrist route. I guess they've done it since Vilsack or more, but there's also running away from the Democratic Party that it looks like Rob is doing. But I guess the bottom line for me, if other candidates get in, so be it. I don't think Rob is, I've never seen him to not being willing to take on tough issues. The bottom line is that I think that everything that that author wrote about is absolutely a fine concern. It's something we should be thinking about. But to me, it's awfully 2015.
Sure.
Those are really good things to think about in 2015. It's 2025. If Rob Sand is the candidate, I don't care how he wins. I don't care where his money comes from. I don't care, about that as long as he sticks to, certain values, the rights of all. I'd like to see him address water quality and some of the other issues. But first and foremost, before he can do any of this other stuff that we know he's going to do or hope he's going to do, or there'll be consequences if he doesn't do it, if he's the if he's the candidate, we want him to win, and nitpicking him to death isn't going to help.
And Todd, that's, even in my first ever poli sci class, I'm not a political scientist by any means, but I did take a class. And the first thing they teach you about political parties is their number one goal is to win elections.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
so if his goal is to win an election, I mean, obviously we'll see one way or another whether it's successful or not, but he's trying to win an election. Everything else be damned.
yeah. And he's won two statewide elections. I think his first run was well received. He had a great ad, the one where he's like walking into rooms and turning off the lights.
Yeah, yep,
He's
I
such,
remember
he's
that.
such a,
Yep.
he's such a frugal guy. I am watching closely the water quality because I fear that from what I've heard so far is his entire environmental agenda like that may just be let's pass the sales tax so we can fill the trust fund, the natural resources and outdoor recreation trust fund, which I think could do some good, particularly in outdoor recreation. But I mean, otherwise, it's still going to be a pot of money that's going to be sort of handed to farmers that are doing voluntary things, and other farmers don't have to do anything, and we've already been doing that, and it's not moving the needle. So I hope he has a more developed uh, agenda on that issue than he has at this point.
That would, I think, Dr. Bob, be one of the knocks is his family's big ag interests. So we could possibly go from one governor who, of course, is supported by Rastetter and Branstad and all the big ag interests, and possibly going to the next, but he's a Democrat.
Right. And that criticism is out there, and I understand it. I just
Yeah,
I just would rather have a Democrat in office. I'm willing to compromise on a lot of things, but I think that water quality, for one, it's a winning issue if handled rightly. And if he doesn't come out, I mean, we're at a critical juncture. I don't know well, I know where you live, Spencer, and what things look like around you, but where I live, out in the country, they're mining this area. The agricultural interests are mining it like it's the dark side of the moon.
Mhm.
I've got fields all around me that are plowed right to the creek.
Right.
And they're taking tops off of hillsides. It's just it's the kind of we've talked about this before. It's the kind of sort of colonialism that Western society has done throughout the world without caring about the consequences, the human consequences or the environmental consequences, as long as we could get as much resources out of them as we could. And then all of a sudden it's hitting here at home and we're seeing it. It looks, some parts of the landscape around us are like moonscapes.
Right. And getting worse. losing topsoil, all of that runoff going into our rivers, creeks, streams, and doing pretty much unfixable damage in a lot of areas. We talked about several rivers. The Nishnabotna is dead in southwest Iowa. I mean, you'd be lucky to find anything alive even near that area.
Well, and in my suburban environs, I watch housing developments. They scrape all the black dirt off the top of the clay, pile it up somewhere. They might use it to fill some low spots, but otherwise it's gone. And when it rains in my neighborhood, the runoff off the clay is like concrete. So we're not doing our part here to sort of contribute to water quality, and especially flash flooding, which is a big problem in Cedar Rapids. And that's the thing about water quality, is that a lot of the measures you take to improve water quality also improve flood mitigation. So it's perplexing why it's not more of a priority. But I mean, when you've got the governor's office and the regulatory structure and all of that stuff completely, wholly owned subsidiaries of agriculture, it's you're not going to get much accomplished.
Yeah, and this has been an ongoing issue, whether it's Republicans, Democrats. I mean, water quality, and that's the other thing too, and that's not just a statewide issue; it's also a nationwide issue in terms of, engineers always think, okay, we can engineer our way out of this. We can figure out a way to move the water here or move the water there. But it's like, no, what we really need are swamps, low-lying areas to suck up all that moisture, buffer strips, all those things that we know work and have worked for eons to control flooding. But yeah, we just want to put up more concrete structures and move the water where we want it to go, which of course doesn't always work out that way.
Well, and Cedar Rapids is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a flood system that protects them from the flood they got last time, which was like 31 point some feet, up to like 32 point. I think there's an extra foot.
Right.
I mean, can anyone say definitively that there's not going to be a flood bigger than that? The way climate change is happening and land use isn't changing fast enough. And I mean, that may not be the deepest it can get.
Right.
And I don't think people realize that. And when they do, it's going to be pretty sad.
Right.
Well, something has to be done. I mean, the Republicans know the water is dirty. They act like it isn't. They say it's in great shape, and so they don't want to do anything about it. The Democrats know it's dirty too. They say we've got to do something about it, but when they're in power, they haven't done anything about it, and they don't have any power now to do anything about it, and we don't know if they eventually will if they gain power back. And so it's, there's a lot of blame to go around, as Chris Jones has told us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have yet to. I mean, I know Ryan Melton was in favor of regulation, but he's one of the few Democrats I've ever heard say that. I've never talked to a Democratic candidate for governor or, high office legislature who's willing to say that they'll put regulations on farmers to control pollution. They're just not. They have the conventional wisdom as usual is that, oh, if I say that, then the rural votes aren't going to come. Well, the rural votes may not come anyway, but it's the right thing to do. And I think there are more people in rural Iowa concerned about the environment than you think.
Right. And not everybody that lives in rural Iowa is a farmer. They have to drink the water and they see what's going on. So yeah, I mean, maybe going harder after that would be a way to pull away some more rural votes. I think that's a good point. Let's get into some more national politics here. This is some cock talk from the BBC. Elon Musk has criticized one of the signature policies of Donald Trump, marking a break from the U.S. president, who he helped to win re-election in 2024. Last week, the U.S. House of Representatives narrowly passed what Trump calls his big, beautiful bill, which includes multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks and a pledge to increase defense spending. It will now head to the Senate. Tech titan Musk told the BBC's U.S. partner CBS News he was disappointed by the plan, which he felt undermines the work he did for the president on reducing spending. Musk was enlisted as Trump's cost-cutting czar, ending funds for U.S. foreign aid, among other projects, before announcing he would step back. Quoting Musk here, "I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly." told that in an interview with CBS Sunday Morning, a clip of which was released by the broadcaster before transmission. He went on to argue that Trump's plan, quote, increases the budget deficit, not just decreases it. Referring to Trump's moniker for the legislation, Musk told CBS, quote, I think a bill can be big or beautiful. I don't know if it can be both, end quote.
I thought we were done with Elon Musk.
I think this may be the death rattle, possibly. I do think it's kind of interesting, Todd, in the first place, that CBS or BBC would even be interested in talking to Elon Musk about this.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from him already, and I don't know if there's any Americans out there that are eager to hear any more, but it's interesting that he is critical of the big beautiful bill, which, I mean, I've seen tough votes, bills that are not good. I have never seen so many not good bills wrapped into one piece of legislation for one vote. I mean, you're hitting SNAP, you're hitting Medicaid, you're raising the deficit by $4 trillion. Well, I guess they're going to build the big beautiful wall, which is going to be great. And they're giving all of this money to the Border Patrol, which I'm not saying that that border security isn't important, but hey, what you can't brag about the numbers, the apprehensions being at an all-time low, and then ask for hundreds of millions of dollars for new money for the Border Patrol. It's just that bill is, I mean, it's disappointing in more ways than I can count. And our congressional delegation in the House didn't bat an eye. They voted for it, and now they're back. They've been back in Iowa over the break talking about how all they're doing is waste, fraud, and abuse, and they're making it stronger. And just I mean, there's none of that is true in the least. So the fact that Elon Musk even thinks it's not a great bill doesn't lend itself to its quality.
It makes me think, that maybe he has just a shred of integrity. There for a while I was thinking he had absolutely none. But if Elon Musk sees something wrong with what Trump is doing, my God, it must be really, really wrong.
Well, one thing that was
Yeah.
interesting that Laura had brought up when we had our show Capitol Week on Monday evening is there's been a lot of talk, of course, about the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, but they're also cutting some of the subsidies for Obamacare, for the Affordable Care Act. So even for people that are, actually paying out of pocket for their health insurance, but might be getting some subsidies to help cover that cost, they now might be losing their health care. And then there's nothing for them to fall back on. There may not be Medicaid there to slip in.
Some of those people might be getting, I don't know, increases in their healthcare costs if the Obamacare subsidy goes away, might be $600, $1,000 that
Right.
budgets aren't going to be able to handle.
Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of all sorts of stuff in this bill, as Todd mentioned, it's a load of crap, basically. And it's just absolutely ridiculous to call it the big, beautiful bill. And I thought that was actually pretty interesting for Elon to say that. Is that true, do you think? Can a bill be big and beautiful?
Well, you could have a big voting rights bill. Suppose that would be big and beautiful. You could, yeah, there's all sorts of big bills you could pass that would be beautiful, but not this one.
Something dealing with the environment, healthcare
Yeah.
costs, affordable housing, childcare. I mean, you know, that could be something, and return to the higher tax rates of the 50s and 60s that got us, you know, oh, more people working at better paying jobs and great, innovations and research and development that companies did under those high tax rates. It would, I mean, that would be good. And higher tax rates for the rich. And
That would
so,
also be good. That would be the number one thing that could fix a lot of issues. I mean, if you look at this tax bill, if the top earners are going to save about $400,000 a year with the permanent, or not permanent, but extending these Trump tax cuts. And people like us three are going to save $50. You know what I mean? Like we're not, I mean, we're not really getting a tax break. And by the way, that $50, I'm not even sure how much it actually is, but we're getting a very small portion of that big, beautiful tax cut that he's just giving away to his rich friends. And the thing is, we knew this was happening. Everybody that voted for him knew this was going to happen, and they're just hoping that that trickles down to them, which we know it won't.
Yeah. Well, they're being told on Fox News how great it is. All the MAGA media, it's all I used to would have said it's all unicorns and rainbows, but you can't say have a rainbow on Fox News anymore. But everything that is happening is just glorious. If you watch it, I check out Fox every day and Newsmax a lot of times, and I listen to WHO, and it's just like everything is just wonderful. And I learned the other day, that dictator in El Salvador,
Yeah,
um, and that
where we're
runs that
sending our
terrible.
prisoners. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, on WHO radio, he's a hero. He's a great man.
of course. That's
Well,
sick.
he's the world's coolest dictator. I think he's given that
Yeah.
name to himself.
So I mean, it's
So
it's a bizarro other world that they don't know what's happening out here.
So before we get to this Skynet story where artificial intelligence is going to take over, you're wearing a Drake sweatshirt. For those of you that are not watching, but just listening to this podcast, Todd is wearing a Drake sweatshirt. The attacks on colleges and universities have obviously stepped up quite a bit over the past few weeks, especially Trump going after Harvard specifically. But Drake is sort of an island into itself in the state of Iowa. They're keeping their DEI initiative. They're pushing back against people that are trying to say that that's not the right thing to do.
yeah, they are. I wrote a column about that. That's my alma mater, so I had to
Yeah,
toot their horn a little bit. Yeah, they have a president who actually did a writers collaborative uh, chat a while back, a couple months ago, I think. And I mean, they're dedicated to DEI. Their students are dedicated to DEI. There's been no objection on campus to them, you know, living diversity is the way he calls it, and inclusion and equity. And uh, there was a bill that tried to get private colleges to buckle. They were going to kids that went to Drake, for instance, wouldn't be able to get a Iowa tuition grant because they were going to a school with DEI. So that was the stick, was that there were private colleges wouldn't have access to tuition grant funds, and Drake didn't budge, and eventually that came out of the bill that in the Senate they axed it, so which was a rare piece of good news this session. Uh, but I think you're going to see some more of that as we go on. I think I know they're going after Harvard and all. Every time they're going after universities, it's meant to chill other universities what they teach. And I mean, Iowa is a really good example of how a legislature and a board of regents can basically just, destroy an important program within its state institutions for no other reason than they just don't like it, or they think that it's unfair to white kids or something like that. So, I mean, that's the world we're dealing with. University professors are sometimes considered public enemy number one, though maybe not number one. I think journalists might be public enemy number one, and college professors would be second. So,
right. Well, and did you guys have a chance to see Scott Pelley spoke? He was the commencement address speaker for
yeah,
Wake Forest, and he said everything you would want him to say, the truth of what's happening to universities and journalists.
yeah, there was another column that I read this morning. I'm trying to remember who it was in the New York Times. It was M. I should have. Oh, it's M. Gessen, who is a writer, writes books. He won he won a National Book Award for one of the books that he wrote on uh, totalitarianism, reclaiming Russia. And so he talked about how in Russia, they talked about, I'm sorry, they talked about how in Russia there was this shock period when Putin first consolidated his power. It was after a big Chechen terrorist attack, and he got rid of elected governors and all sorts of things. That was where he really consolidated his power. And there was shock and protests and dismay. But then people just kind of got used to it, and it didn't really phase them anymore. It's just the way it was. And he argues that we're entering the second phase of the Trump term, which is like that. We're just sort of like so used to hearing him do horrible, stupid things that we just kind of shrug. It's, that's just the way it is.
Right.
We're, the complacency sets in. So I hope he's wrong, because boy, if that, if we just come to accept this stuff, I don't know what the country's going to look like at the end of his 4 years, or how many every years he decides he needs to be president, because people have to people have to fight. They can't get complacent. They have to stand up and say this stuff is wrong. But you can understand, you're living your life, you're raising your kids, you're doing your thing. It's hard, but
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's not abstract anymore. It's hitting all kinds of people that I talk to.
Hmm.
I talked to a CDC worker that was fired. I talked to one of the workers that AmeriCorps, a young woman that was in AmeriCorps. She lost her job. I talked to a young man over the weekend that was looking forward to going out to Idaho, doing an internship, uh, for I think it was for the Army Corps of Engineers, and that was cut. I mean, we're seeing people, I don't know, 80,000 or so Iowans might lose their Medicare. People are going to lose SNAP. Grandma's going to lose whatever. It's just starting to hit everybody. And we're seeing it in our lives. I don't know, but the hospital bill, I was talking to a hospital CEO the other day, how that's going to impact rural hospitals across, the country. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And when it hits people personally, they're going to rebel. And I've been to a lot of protests in the last few months, and there are people that are angry, and teachers, and just there's just so much happening, and then it's coming home. And I think eventually that people are going to recognize how terrible it is. I mean, with this hospital CEO, he was talking to me about how proud he was of the Iowa delegation for, fighting back against the worst that could happen. And, because all the red state members of the House of Representatives wanted Medicaid, Medicare cut even more. And I said, so you're grateful for them that when the House of Representatives wanted to shoot you in the face, they shot you in the knee instead. And he says, that's perfect. Yes, I
Right.
am very grateful. And he says, yes, the Iowa delegation, they pushed the gun down and hit me in the knee.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's hitting everywhere.
Things we have to be thankful for
Yeah.
these days. This is A Iowa. This is from Huffington Post. The company behind an Amazon-backed AI model revealed a number of concerning findings from its testing process, including that the AI would blackmail engineers who threatened to shut it down. On Thursday, artificial intelligence startup Anthropic launched Claude Opus 4, an AI model used for complex, long-running coding tasks. The launch came more than a year after Amazon invested $4 billion into the project. Anthropic said in its announcement that the AI model sets, quote, new standards for coding, advanced reasoning, and AI agents. However, Anthropic revealed in a safety report that during testing, the AI model had sometimes taken extremely harmful actions to preserve its own existence when ethical means were, quote, not available. After multiple rounds of interventions, the company now believes this issue is largely mitigated. Mitigated seems like kind of a soft word there. Anthropic co-founder and chief scientist Jared Kaplan told Time magazine that internal testing showed that Claude Opus 4 was able to teach people how to produce biological weapons.
I think they should have named it HAL. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah,
2001: A Space Odyssey. Didn't HAL, come out as very aggressive against humans?
So, and just to describe one of these tests a little bit more, so they gave this artificial intelligence a cache of emails that said that it would eventually be replaced by another AI model. Also, in those emails was information that the head of this research team was having an affair. So, this AI model was using that information, saying that if you shut me down, I will let people know about this affair. So that's even more of like, so it's not just saying, no, don't shut me down, don't shut me down. It's saying, if you do this, I will get you back. This is happening. Like, this is science fiction stuff happening right now. And Todd, what do you think about this,
Wow.
by the way? Dr. Bob, we talk about AI quite a bit on this show, of course, and he had brought up in the past, when are we going to have an AI president? And our name is already Claude. So are we going to have a President Claude at some point?
Um, yeah, I don't have the answer to that. I hope not, but I mean, it's going to get tougher for journalism. I mean, also, I saw some videos yesterday of reporters interviewing like people on the street, and it looked like a reporter interviewing people on the street. It was totally AI. There wasn't
Right.
one real person in that whole thing. And I mean, the ideas on how you could manipulate that are, there's no limit.
And speaking of, I saw that the Daily Wire, obviously not a high echelon journalistic endeavor, but certainly known as a website that people go to, they just shared on social media without saying that this was artificial intelligence, a video pretty similar to, like you mentioned, it was a scene of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and it was a completely made up video being passed along as being a real video.
And I mean, there are still at this point limits enough to the technology that if you look at something, you're like, yeah, I'm not sure. That looks kind of too perfect. The lighting and the colors but it's not going to take long to make it indistinguishable. And I don't really know what you do at that point. I mean, you can point out to people that something's fake, but it's like anything else on social media. I mean, you could point out to your blue in the face all the stuff Trump people were saying that were lies, and people didn't listen. The media's a liar. I mean, the conservatives have done a really, really good job over the past 30, 35 years to basically completely discredit the media in a lot of ways. And the media's helped at times. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, we're their side of the fence. No matter what we tell them, they're not having it. So that makes it difficult to let people know that something's not real and it's dangerous. And so that's that's a problem. I don't have the solution. I'd probably be getting paid a lot more if I had the solution to that.
Right.
Well, there's something else that's going to go on that's going to hit us on the ground too. I was reading this morning that the AI people think that, that most jobs are going to be, totally reworked. A lot of jobs are going to be obsolete, and that maybe in 2 to 5 years we'll have a 20% unemployment rate. And so one of these AI people said, well, maybe what we should do is tax anything that makes a profit off of AI 3% and put it back into the government for services or whatever. I just don't think so. As somebody who, you know, I've written a lot of papers over the course of my life, and 52 of the papers that I wrote over 20 years ago have been used by Facebook's AI to help train it. No
Right.
compensation, 52 of my papers. And so it I think that there's going to be lots of profits. I think that, that the media who the AI and Google and all these people and Facebook have been making money off of. There should be compensation with respect to that, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anything ever really. But if we've got a 20% unemployment rate, I think that those profits, let's just say they're 10 or 20% of AI generated profits, they just need to be checks cut
Right.
to people. If you're making under, say, $250,000 a year, you get a check.
Right.
Yeah, they may have gotten a bunch of my columns and used it to tell AI not to write columns like this.
Oh,
Don't
please.
don't do it. No one will believe they're real.
You guys ready for the factoid of the week?
Sure.
Sure.
In ancient Egypt, the word for cat was pronounced mew or meow. So it was almost like an onomatopoeia name for the animal.
So why did we change it to cat?
Because we're idiots, Dr. Bob. The Egyptians obviously had it all figured out. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like cat. I like mew.
Well, we would call dogs
Yeah,
barks. Yeah. Could probably live with that.
yeah. Barkies and
Yeah.
mews.
What would
So
we
was
call
that?
human?
So I, by the way, I've been disappointing you, I think, with my factoids of the week the last couple of weeks, Dr. Bob. Is that one okay? Do you like that one?
If I
Is that one
liked
you're going to
cats better.
remember?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured. All right. Top five 90s bands. I thought this would be up Todd's alley. So hopefully it is. By the way, if you have any problems with my list, please let me know. Same thing with Todd and Dr. Bob. And even in the comments, if you're listening to this and you think I'm absolutely wrong, comments are always welcome on my top fives. But you also have to put your own top five. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, oh, you should have had this. Well, it's okay to say one band, but well, what's your top five? I want to know what your top five is. So here's top five 90s bands. Number five, Soundgarden. Number four, Tool. Number three, Deftones. Number two, Korn. And number one, Nirvana.
Uh, it's a pretty solid list. I might throw Red Hot Chili Peppers in there.
It's a good one.
Uh, maybe Pearl Jam when they, were still when they
See,
early in their.
my girlfriend would love that. She would have Pearl Jam at number one. I've just never really been a huge Eddie Vedder. I mean, I certainly know that they're talented and I do like some of their songs. They're just not the band for me.
I don't know if
And
I
Smashing Pumpkin would be another that I would
Yeah,
maybe.
that was huge band.
I don't know if I could identify songs by any of them. I do know Nathan Sage, our friend, has me liking Tool. I will say that.
Every
But
time I think of Tool, yes, Nathan Sage comes to mind because that is his favorite band.
but if I had to, I would put REM.
Sure.
I loved REM.
See, those three bands, Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins, and REM, my girlfriend Jessie is probably overhearing this right now. She's saying they're right. My top five is absolutely wrong because she loves
Yeah,
all three of those bands.
REM definitely had hits in the 90s. I mean, they date back to the 70s, but
Right.
yeah, they
But
did. It probably was one of their most popular decades.
Yeah,
If
How
probably
not
about
the
the
most
most.
Radiohead?
commercial success. Yeah.
Radiohead. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah. All sorts of great 90s bands. And that's the thing. I just feel like there's no good bands anymore. Like
There's
it's hard. Like you got
one,
to really go searching to find like a new good band that just sounds like a band.
yeah, the guitar and all of that has sort of faded away from the,
Right.
like the top 40, or if they still have a top 40, top 20,
Right.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, there are, and they still have the Grammy for best rock performance, and I didn't recognize the band that won it. They were decent,
Right.
but yeah,
Just
rock
seems
is
like a
kind of.
bygone era, It just seems like, yeah, there's just not much rock and roll anymore. The All American Rejects were like popular when I was in college, and they went on a college tour just doing backyard concerts, and they are blowing up because kids in college are like, hey, cool, like this is fun. A real band playing drums and guitars.
Hey, Spencer,
Hey, Dr. Bob.
I thought that after last week when you did your favorite Pete's, when Pete Buttigieg was on the show, I thought maybe this week you do your favorite Todd's.
Okay, so I was trying to, but Todd, I'm not sure if you knew this. There is a dearth of famous
Oh,
Todds. There's
oh
just
yeah. I
not a lot
mean,
of Todds.
I did a column when Todd Pritchard announced he was exploring a candidacy for governor, and I just talked about what a maligned first name it is. I mean, you think of the people that have been called Todd in movies. There's the rich neighbor guy
I was gonna
in
say Todd is always the
Christmas.
villain. Yeah, he's always the villain
Yeah,
in the
in
80s
Christmas
movies.
Vacation, he was the guy next door. Yeah, they're kind of. I think people use Chad now but it used to be Todd, sort of
Honestly,
vapid.
the most famous Todd I know is Todd Flanders, the fictional Simpsons character. And I think even
Yeah,
when I Googled it, I mean, there's like Todd Helton, Todd Rundgren, the rock star or rocker, shouldn't even really say star. But see, yeah, even Todd is like, that's really not like Todd Rundgren. I mean, really?
yeah. I mean, and you can't really stretch to say Mary Todd Lincoln. That's not fair.
Right. And I was
Um,
thinking like Sweeney Todd, but that's not really, I mean, that's
it's yeah. It's definitely not a powerful word. There was an Oklahoma candidate for governor named Todd, but he got into some sort of difficulty and had to drop out of the race. So, uh,
found out he was named Todd probably.
yeah, and of course, Todd Pritchard didn't get very far either. So
Right.
I don't know if it's just the name, maybe not, but it carries baggage. There's no doubt about it.
That was a
I
good
think
question
we
though, Dr. Bob. I was going to mention that I spent 2 days, literally, I put together, okay, top five, and spent literally like off and on 2 days of trying to find famous, even fictional Todds. And I couldn't even, I mean, like I said, I gave you three of them, and that's about all I got.
well, I think
So
that
my
we can
number one
say
Todd, by the way, is Todd Dorman.
that's what I was going to say.
Oh,
Ta-da!
well, thank
Yeah,
you. That's
You're welcome.
absolutely.
And
I'm
that's the
kind of
truth, honestly.
I
That's
think I
honestly
think
the
I'm
truth.
kind of the leper with most fingers in the Todd
Right.
world, maybe if that's what you're saying.
Oh man. Todd, before we let you go, obviously you're a columnist at the Cedar Rapids Gazette, but what are you working on? What can people expect on your next column?
I was going to write something for Sunday about the governor's SNAP limits. There were some things that struck me as interesting. Like one thing that particularly caught me as interesting was you can no longer buy seeds or garden plants, and I was just wondered why they decided to it was pretty cheap,
Right.
and
Yeah, I didn't even
Cruel.
know that.
It's cruel.
yeah,
You don't
I mean,
have a cool garden.
evidently the governor hasn't heard that whole thing. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a day.
Right.
That whole I don't know what that is, axiom.
Yeah, that
maybe.
certainly seems like a pretty cost efficient way to feed people.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think I saw a chart where you paid $2.20 for some zucchini seeds, you get $12.50 worth of produce.
Right.
So
Yeah, make sure to watch out for that in the Cedar Rapids Gazette. I shouldn't say grew up reading Todd because I'm not that old. Todd is not that old. But I did grow up in the Marion area. The Cedar Rapids Gazette is my hometown paper. And you've been writing there for, I'm going to guess here, Todd, about 20 to 25 years.
this is my 18th. So
Okay, so you're actually right on. I moved to Knoxville to start my radio journey 18 years ago. So we're right on the same track. So yeah, I've been reading Todd for as long as you've been around. So it's really been an honor to have you on the show, a Belmont alumni as well. My dad will be very proud about that. And also make sure to follow us on Substack. Dr. Bob has Deep Midwest Politics and Culture, as well as Cedar Creek Nature Notes, taking a walk with Dr. Bob in the woods. And then follow us as well. We're iowarevolution.substack.com. Thanks again to Todd Dorman, and we'll see you again next week.